The noise was everywhere. Lunch trays, milk cartons, third graders shouting about ketchup, but at the very last table, there was no sound. She sat alone, same spot, same plastic tray, 2 tamales wrapped in foil. A juice box no one else had. Lucía didn't look up, she never did. She peeled her lunch slowly, eyes on her food, like if she didn't look around, maybe the world wouldn't look back. They called her quiet. They called her weird. They said her mom didn't speak English, so Lucía just stopped trying. That's when the dog walked in, big, calm, a German shepherd. He trotted straight past the cafeteria monitors, past the noise, past the staring kids. Then he saw her. And without a sound, he sat down right beside her and stayed. Elijah Boone stood by the doorway, hands in his coat, watching. He didn't tell Scout to go because sometimes the ones who are most left out are the ones most worth sitting with. Thank you for being here. Sometimes the smallest moments carry the greatest meaning. Today's story is one of those, quiet, powerful, and worth remembering. If it touches your heart, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. And if you'd like more stories like this, you're warmly invited to subscribe and tap the bell so you won't miss the next one. Now, let's take a closer look at what really happened. Lucía never caused trouble, never raised her hand, never asked to go to the bathroom. Most days the teachers barely noticed her. She came in quietly, sat in the third seat from the window, wrote in pencil, erased often. Her English wasn't perfect. She knew that. She worked on it at home, with her mother beside her, late nights. Phonics worksheets downloaded from the school website, the kind that said, circle the word that begins with CH, or write a sentence with proud. She didn't always understand the words, but she knew what it felt like to sit at a table while everyone else filled theirs. Lunch was the hardest part. The cafeteria smelled like melted cheese and plastic trays. But for Lucía, it also smelled like fear, because that was the hour when the invisible became obvious. The other girls sat together, pink lunchboxes, cheese sticks, laughter. Lucía sat alone, not because she wanted to, but because after the first few weeks, when she tried, someone had wrinkled their nose and said, "Yo, what is that smell?" It was chicken mole, her mother's best, a Sunday leftover, but that one comment was enough. After that she started skipping lunch, until her teacher, Ms. Carter, noticed. Then came the talk, gentle, kind, but full of that adult tone. "I'm here to help, but I don't really know how." Lucía just nodded, said she'd try to eat more, but the cafeteria didn't change. The seats stayed full, everywhere but hers. That Friday, the noise in the lunchroom was louder than usual. Pep rally day, kids waving napkins, one boy trying to balance a milk carton on his head. Lucía sat in her usual spot, tamales again, wrapped in foil. Her mother had kissed her forehead that morning and said, "Don't let them make you smaller, Mija." Lucía smiled, but deep down, she'd already made herself small, enough to disappear. Then came the moment, the door opened, and the room, for just a second, paused, not because of a teacher, not because of the principal, but because of a dog. He was big, tall enough that his ears brushed the top of a third grader's backpack, eyes steady, coat gray around the muzzle, a German shepherd, old but strong, leashed to nothing, and absolutely certain of where he was going. He walked past the teachers, past the clatter, past the laughter, and stopped. At her table, he looked at Lucía. She froze, and then he sat down, not like a trick, not like he was waiting for food. He just sat next to her, facing the same direction, as if they'd done this every day. Lucía stared at him. Then slowly she reached out, one hand trembling. She touched his fur, and instead of pulling away, he leaned in, just enough to let her know, "You're not invisible anymore." From across the room, Elijah watched, hand still in his coat. He didn't say anything, didn't need to, because Scout had made his choice. And Elijah had learned long ago to trust that kind of decision. That night, Lucía told her mother, "Mommy, a dog sat with me today." Her mother paused. "A dog?" Lucía smiled. "He didn't care about my food, he didn't laugh, he just sat there, and everyone else looked." At school the next day, Scout returned. Again he walked straight to her table, sat. This time Lucia brought 2 tamales, one she unwrapped for herself, one she left wrapped, and placed gently on the tray beside him. Scout didn't eat it, but he sniffed, then rested his chin on the table, still watching, still choosing. By day 3 the whispers had started. She feeds him with her hands. She doesn't even speak English. Maybe the dog feels sorry for her. Lucia heard all of it but didn't respond. She kept peeling her lunch slowly, same seat, same soft touch behind Scout's ears. She was learning to feel less alone, which, for a 9-year-old, was nothing short of a miracle. But children, like adults, often resent what they don't understand, especially when it makes them look at their own silence. That Friday, just before recess, Lucia was stopped in the hallway. 3 girls, 5th grade. One taller than the others, red sneakers. "Why does that dog like you?" the tall one asked. Lucia stayed quiet. "Did you train it with burritos or something?" Another girl laughed. Lucia blinked, held her lunchbox tighter. "Maybe your dad's a janitor. Dogs like cleaning people, right?" Scout rounded the corner. He didn't bark, didn't rush. He simply walked between Lucia and the girls, stood still, shoulders squared, eyes fixed, not angry, just certain. Like he knew where right and wrong lived. The girls backed away, slow, confused. "He's not even hers," one muttered. Then she didn't even say anything. But that was the point. Lucia didn't need to. Scout had already spoken. Later that afternoon, Elijah was asked to speak at the school's Veteran Awareness Day. The principal introduced him as a man of service and a man of character. He took the microphone without notes and began. "I served in 3 continents, saw things I hope none of you ever have to see, but the most important lessons I ever learned weren't on a battlefield. They were at tables, mess halls, briefing rooms, hospital beds." He looked across the gymnasium, but the table I remember most was empty. Pause. It was called the missing man table. A single chair, a plate no one touches, a candle. It represents the soldier who didn't come home. The kids were silent, but lately, Elijah continued, I've been thinking about another kind of table, the ones in your cafeteria, the ones where someone always sits alone. He paused, scanned the rows. You know the ones. Some students looked down, others shifted uncomfortably. One teacher cleared her throat, but Elijah didn't let up. I want you to imagine something. Imagine a dog who could sit next to anyone in the room, anyone. He could choose the loudest table, the funniest kids, the ones with snacks in their pockets. He smiled slightly, but instead, he walks across the room, past the noise, and sits beside the quietest girl, the one everyone else stopped seeing. Now the room was completely still, and then he asked the question, why do you think he chose her? No one answered, not right away. Then a hand went up. Lucia, small, quiet, brave, she didn't stand, didn't speak loudly. But everyone heard her, because what she said was the truest thing in the room. Maybe because I needed someone to choose me first. The gym stayed silent for 5 full seconds. No cough, no shifting, no laughter. Even the teachers sat straighter, because a 3rd grader had just said what none of them could. After the assembly, the school counselor pulled Elijah aside. That wasn't the speech I expected. Elijah raised an eyebrow. But maybe, she added, it's the one we all needed. It happened on a Tuesday, nothing special about it, until Lucia opened her lunchbox. She had packed it herself. 2 folded napkins, a slice of pan dulce, leftover arroz con pollo. But when she opened the lid, she froze. Inside, crumpled between the food, were pieces of notebook paper, shredded, wet with juice, crumpled like trash. She didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't ask who did it. She just closed the lid slowly, pressed her hands on top, and sat still, like if she moved, it might break her completely. Scout wasn't there that day. Elijah had a VA appointment. He promised Lucia they'd be back by Thursday. But today, she was alone again, more alone than ever, because now, someone had told her, you don't even deserve to eat. A teacher found her in the restroom, standing at the sink, still holding the box. She hadn't thrown it away. She hadn't eaten, she just stood, like a statue of quiet shame. That night, Elijah didn't ask what happened. He saw it in her face, and in the way Scout pressed close to her legs when they met again. So Elijah didn't offer comfort, didn't give advice, he just nodded. And later, he wrote a letter, by hand, in block print. No signature, just 4 lines. This table is for the kids who were never invited. The ones who brought lunch but no one sat beside. The ones we called different before learning their names. Today, we change the seat, not the child. The next morning, a single table stood in the center of the cafeteria. It wasn't fancy, just one round table, with a small card taped to the top. You can sit here, especially if no one ever let you before. No decorations, no balloons, but Scout was already there, sitting, waiting, his leash coiled neatly around one chair, the other seats empty. For now, Lucía walked in, eyes wide, backpack tighter than usual. She saw him first, then the table, then the card, and slowly she stepped forward, put down her tray, and sat. Scout placed his head on her lap. She didn't smile, didn't speak, but she did something new. She looked up. The first 5 minutes passed in silence. Then a boy from her class walked over, not quickly, not confidently. He held a sandwich in one hand, paused. "Is it okay if I sit here?" Lucía didn't answer with words. She just moved her tray slightly, made room. By the end of lunch, 3 kids were at the table, not laughing, not pointing, just eating together like they always had, even though they hadn't. The teacher on lunch duty watched the scene, didn't interrupt, didn't take notes, but when Elijah walked in quietly from the side door, she nodded once, like saying, "We saw it too." Finally, that evening, Elijah returned to the school. Not to talk, not to meet the principal, just to place a second card on the table. This one read, "For the ones who never left a mess, but were always asked to clean it up." He left it there, no explanation, and walked away. Scout stayed a little longer, watching, waiting, as if he knew that something sacred was starting to take root in that fluorescent-lit room. She didn't tell anyone she was entering, just folded her story into 4 neat pages, typed on her mother's old laptop, saved on a USB drive with a sticker that read, "Lucía's Science Project." But what she wrote was no science, it was something else. Her teacher found it on the classroom desk. The title, "How a Dog Chose Me Before Anyone Else Did." The first paragraph read, "At first I thought he sat with me by accident, but then he came back, and I realized he didn't come to protect me. He came because I was already enough, just quiet, just waiting, just me." The essay wasn't submitted to any contest, wasn't read over the loudspeaker, didn't win a ribbon, but someone printed it, taped it to the cafeteria wall, right above the round table, and underneath in smaller print, "For the quiet ones, we see you now." The table stayed. Scout too, whenever Elijah visited, he'd lay beside the chair, sometimes with Lucía, sometimes with someone new. No special treatment, no announcements, but it never sat empty again because now everyone knew what it meant. On the last day of the semester, Lucía brought a drawing, crayon, bold colors, messy but sincere, in the center, a round table, surrounded by smiling kids, and at the edge, a tall, quiet dog with kind eyes. Above it she wrote, "Sometimes kindness chooses first." The principal framed it, hung it near the front office. No plaque, no gold frame, just paper. And truth, Elijah stopped by to see it once, didn't stay long, just nodded, whispered to Scout, "You did good, partner." Scout didn't move, just looked at the drawing, and wagged his tail, once, soft like he already knew. There are kids who never get chosen first. Not for games, not for lunch tables, not for kindness, but sometimes someone chooses them anyway, not because they're loud, not because they fit in, but because they were worth seeing all along. If this story touched your heart, take a moment in the comments to share a name, someone you once saw sitting alone, or someone who sat beside you when no one else did. And if you believe in quiet kindness, in dogs who choose with their hearts, and tables where everyone belongs, you're already part of this story. Scout and Elijah will see you again soon. You know where to find them.